Good morning, everybody here in Europe and also in Asia. So that is a good afternoon. My name is Sebastian Bersick, and I'm very happy to welcome you all to this Jean Monnet lecture on the topic of EU-Asia connectivity and specifically sustainable and digital transformations. We here at the Ruhr-Universität Bochum focus on EU-Asia relations, and we are happy to also hold a Jean Monnet chair that specifically focuses on EU-Asia connectivity. And within this chair, within our work, we do have one activity, which is the Jean Monnet lecture series that brings together practitioners, students, policymakers, the broader public, in order to inform themselves, to discuss, to contribute, to broaden our understanding on EU-Asia connectivity and what that means not only for policy making and policy discourse, but also for the development of international affairs and the international political economy. We are especially honored to have the Ambassador at Large for Connectivity, Romana Vlahutin, with us this morning. And this is certainly the best or one of the most intriguing opportunities to learn more about what it actually means to deal with, to develop, and to implement the EU strategy on connectivity with Asia that was published in 2018, in late 2018. And Ambassador Vlahutin, in her previous work, she is, by the way, a graduate from Harvard University, that is the J.F. Kennedy School of Government, and she also is a graduate of Zagreb University. Ambassador Vlahutin, in her previous work, she dealt with, especially she was involved with the United Nations International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia. And she also worked as a Croatian diplomat in embassies in Washington and also in Belgrade. She was the head of strategic analysis and policy planning at the Foreign Ministry in Zagreb. She served within the OECD mission in Kosovo. She was an advisor to the president of Croatia. She became the EU ambassador to Albania. But then, nearly 2 years ago, she was appointed the coordinator and ambassador at large for connectivity at the European External Action Service. So, Ambassador Vlahutin, you do have an extensive experience when it comes to foreign policy making and its implementation. And speaking of foreign policy, nowadays, that means speaking of Asia. So we are very intrigued to have you here. In the following hour, what we will do is we will first listen to your talk. Then there will be an opportunity for the two of us to engage in a short interview, and that will then be followed by questions and answers the questions will be put by our audience. Madam Ambassador,
good morning. Do you hear me?
Please, the floor is yours.
Do you hear me?
Yes, I do. We do. I hope so.
Do you see me? Do
Yes.
you see me as well? Okay, great. Thank you very much. I don't see myself, but I guess this is even better. I will be able to focus better. Thank you very, very much. Good morning from, I have to say, sunny Brussels, which is quite pleasant and shocking after many months of gray. And good afternoon to our friends in Asia. What I will try to do is to keep my introductory notes as short as possible, I would say, maybe around 15-20 minutes, and give you some ideas on how we are thinking about connectivity, why we are thinking about connectivity, what European Union is doing now, and what do we plan to do in the future. I think it's really important that we start with the concept of connectivity itself, and this word or phrase that to many sounds abstract or is defined or understood in different ways. Connectivity is about strategic infrastructure, and it creates or enables relations and creates dependencies, and therefore, by definition, it is political. And connectivity has been with us forever. When you look at European Union itself, it has been created or based on the logic of connectivity. And I would say that European Union is the best proof of the economic power and the political power of connectivity as such. But still, many people around the world, when they first think about connectivity, they think about things. They think about ports, railways, airports, highways, and similar. Connectivity is much more than that. It really shapes our context. It creates systems, and what is most important, I think, of all, is connectivity is not value neutral. Connectivity comes in two sort of very important elements. The first, of course, are physical infrastructure projects that define movement, they determine trade routes and value chains, and are absolutely a precondition for economic growth. It's interesting that the World Bank assesses that investment in infrastructure in developed countries has a potential of economic growth of around 2 to 3%, but in developing countries around 7%. So you can imagine what kind of powerful growth connectivity brings. But the regulatory side of connectivity is of immense importance. Here we talk about the rules and norms, and essentially about the rule of law that comes with the physical infrastructure. And then, of course, these two things are absolutely linked with the security aspect of connectivity, because it creates interdependencies, and these interdependencies need to be managed unless we want them to be weaponized, which they sometimes are. Therefore, connectivity is an economic issue, but it's also a political issue, and it's a security issue. And you know, connectivity has been with us forever, and it has always been political, but something has changed in the last 10 years and gave connectivity a whole new dimension, gave it a new velocity, if you wish, and this is digital technology. Digital technology changed everything in a decisive way. I'll just give you a little comparison. In the 1970s, from 1970s to today, the speed of airplanes did not really change. The speed of cars, I think, went up twice. The speed of trains 3 times. But the speed of processing data went up 1 trillion times. So this is really a decisive, profound change, also for our own sense of time, of space, and it has strengthened the interdependencies in a way that it became really one of the key geopolitical tools of 21st century. To be to explain it in a very simple way, especially for the digital sector discussion, whoever will bring the sort of normative lead in digital will actually be in a position to be a leader, a global leader for decades to come. When you combine this with the massive demands, you understand what power brings the engagement in strategic infrastructure and connectivity. I'll just give you an assessment again of the World Bank, which says that for Asia alone, in the next 15, 20 years, the need for connectivity projects will go up to around 28 trillion euros. These are massive needs and massive investments needed. Asia, in a way, understood this new reality first. And Asia, I think we all would agree, is now a leading dynamic force in the world. It's a fascinating continent, very diverse. They saw this, they understood this, and the term connectivity and the discussion on connectivity in a way started from there. The first realization of that was the Belt and Road in 2013. Japan followed up very quickly with their quality infrastructure in 2015, and then in 2018, United States came with the Build Act, and the European Union with its Connecting Europe and Asia strategy. For Europe, it makes all sense. We, together with Asia, are 70% of population, 60% of global GDP. The opportunities are truly, truly massive. The strategy itself, the document itself, talks about 4 pillars through which we want to work on connectivity. That is transport, digital, energy, and human connectivity. 3 ways to implement, to build physical infrastructure, to work and create partnerships for connectivity, and finally to be able to ensure that there is enough financing for this massive need. And then what is really sort of 2 fundamentals. We see connectivity absolutely through the prism of sustainability. This is for us a prerequisite, be it economic, financial, social, or environmental sustainability, and a level playing field. Since the end of 2018, when the strategy was drafted and adopted, we have had a number of very intense exchanges. In 2019, signed a partnership on connectivity with Japan. Yesterday, our foreign ministers had a Japanese foreign minister as a guest at the FAC, and connectivity was discussed. We have just recently, together with ASEAN, agreed to a very comprehensive statement on connectivity and how we want to tackle this together. We are intensively discussing it with India, Republic of Korea, but also apart from Asia, with Central Asia, with Africa. There are a number of interesting connectivity projects with Latin America, and of course, for European Union, extremely important, our own neighborhood, the Western Balkans and Eastern Partnership. So when I talk about connectivity EU-Asia, I actually work on connectivity all over the world because the principles are the same and the function of it is the same. And you can't really separate. Connectivity is not something that you can do in either isolation or alone. One more element which is extremely important here, and it's not so usual in sort of general geopolitical discussions, if you wish, is the centrality of working with private sector. This is a new generation of policies where you know, the sort of the government side of the work cannot succeed unless there is a full engagement with private sector that needs to be assisted and incentivized to invest together with us, sort of in a sustainable connectivity. This is not a small or easy undertaking. Not because EU is already not working on connectivity. We are, and I'll give you some numbers later on. I would even argue that European Union is probably already on the top of the global lead when it comes to the investment in connectivity. But it does require a new take on the things, a new approach. It requires sort of more coherence. It requires better pooling of resources, because to really make a change with connectivity, you need to have a scale. To be a global player, you have to have a global scale. And this requires pooling in a way which we might have not practiced so far. And of course, it requires a lot of engagement and massive engagement on the discussion on the normative side. Connectivity is coming up in many discussions that we have here in Brussels, and there are some sort of interesting and stark mathematical contrasts. I will just give you one. European Union is the leading source of the global FDI. At the moment, around 13 trillion euros of direct foreign investment come from the EU, in comparison, for example, with 1.5 from China. European Union is equally the leading world provider of development assistance. And it's an interesting comparison that we did, that in the same budget cycle from 2013 to 2019, European Union gave almost the same amount of grant assistance around the world as China provided through its loans within the BRI project. But the perceptions are not really reflecting that. And it's very important that also we are better in explaining what we are doing and how much and what we are investing and in what way. For us here, as I said, connectivity comes up in many discussions, but I find it quite fascinating when it is in the context of the discussion on European strategic autonomy or strategic sovereignty, or what you want to call it, but in general on the European capacity and capability to be one of the key global leaders in 21st century. And it is very interesting to see that, you know, on this one, we really have all the capacities, and we already have everything that is needed to be able to perform that role. As I already told you, European Union in terms of financial power and strength is already on the top. We are a normative leader, global normative leader, and we do have cutting-edge technologies that are absolutely also a paramount part of our discussion on connectivity. There's a lot going on. I was listening very carefully to the hearings of the incoming also US administration. There is a lot of understanding that things have changed and that the world is very different than it was only a few years ago, that relations have changed, and that we will have to all together look into our partnerships also through the lens of new generation of policies, and connectivity is definitely one of them. If you allow me, I would stop here, and then I would ask you, Professor, to ask me questions, maybe more detailed or more Asia specific, so that I can answer, of course, and then engage with the audience.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ambassador Vlahutin, for your speech, for your talk, for introducing us to this new buzzword in international affairs, and for also making clear the relevance in economic, financial, economic, and security terms that we are dealing with here. You mentioned China. You mentioned other actors as well, but let us start with China here. Many observers regarded and still regard the connectivity strategy by the European Union as a reaction, if not a counterbalance, to China's Belt and Road Initiative. Is that so? And what are the implications? Does the strategy compete with China's Belt and Road Initiative? From what you said, one might get the impression this is so. But then what are the complementary actions that we need to implement?
Thank you very much for the question. I think it's important to clarify this. In my mind, European Union would have tackled the issue of connectivity regardless, even if nobody else in the world did it. As I told you already, we are a result of connectivity. We understand the logic of it, and we also certainly understand the benefits of it. So I think simply the technology and also the world we live in brought connectivity as one of the policy strands that are absolutely on the top of our agenda regardless. However, China started first. That is clear, and Belt and Road in a way woke up many other countries in understanding what is the potential and what is the importance or geopolitical importance of this policy. European Union does not have a need to compete because we are not approaching a number of things in the same way, if you wish. I already told you that our two sort of fundamental principles are sustainability and the level playing field. And in that sense, this really is an endeavor that is open to everybody in the world who also recognizes the same principles of sustainability and the level playing field as fundamental principles. Again, when it comes to environment, when it comes to fiscal sustainability, economic sustainability, social sustainability, for us, it is really important that our partnerships are built on these principles. And again, in that sense, it's not a competition, it's the European version of connectivity and the way we understand and do connectivity. And if you wish, It's one of many alternatives. We think the best alternative, but it's one of many alternatives or alternative offers that are out there. We think that connectivity and sustainability, the European way, makes countries more competitive, makes them more resilient, the same way it made European Union more competitive and more resilient. So in that sense, I would never talk about competition, because we are just simply offering the way that we think infrastructure projects will long-term bring better benefit to the recipient countries.
Yeah, thank you. Let's stay with the European way. That is sustainability, a sustainable, comprehensive, and rules-based connectivity. Recently, the Digital Service Act, the Digital Markets Act, Data Governance Act, Cybersecurity Strategy have been issued. In your view, will the EU promote those sectoral priorities vis-à-vis Asia within the connectivity approach? And what should be the mechanisms and instruments in place? What is needed in order to make this strategy successful?
Thank you. I think it's clear to everybody that the cooperation and issues of digital and green transition are essential. These are two also sort of leading priorities of the current Commission and Commission's President, and it's just the fact of the times that we live in, and it's an absolute necessity to have our attention fully on these two. When it comes to digital, it is of particular importance, because there are very many unknowns in a way, or the whole normative part of it is in the shaping. And it is incredibly important that we engage and see eye to eye with our partners around the world, because for digital, especially for digital economies, the ability to share is essential. You can't have it without this, and this will not come without trust. And trust, of course, doesn't come on its own. I think we in European Union have also learned very well that the best way to sort of generate trust is to share the same set of rules and norms, or the same set of standards, which then make us predictable to each other. And this predictability, of course, then creates trust. This is of critical importance. You know, there is a lot of discussion on decoupling in the world. There is a lot of discussion on the use of internet and etc. And it will require a lot of very intense and careful and painful, if you wish, agreements and discussions, because this is going to define not only the systems, but also our personal lives. The privacy, the protection of privacy, our civil rights, etc. So I think it is. I know that is at the top of all our discussions when we talk about connectivity with our many partners in the world. There is a lot of demand for European Union to engage. I think we are seen as leaders on many of these issues that you have mentioned, and again, digital connectivity is something that has or is proving its incredible importance even while we talk. Because if there was no digital connectivity, we would not be able to have this webinar under the pandemics, and this is something that also requires a lot of investment in knowledge. So I would say that investment in innovation is something that is also an essential part of connectivity. And we are always, this is what I wanted to sort of emphasize, we are always taking this human connectivity as something that is a fundamental part of the discussion here. So what it will be needed to make our strategy work, this is primarily, I would say, understanding of the complexity of this issue and the need to pool the resources at a scale that would make a real and major difference. We are already working towards that goal. I mean, European Union has already changed many sort of connectivity deficiencies across the world, but this is something where we are able, capacitated, knowledgeable, and also have our own experience to be able to share this with the partners. I can tell you that there is a lot of requests, or there are a lot of requests for Europe to come in to bring its offer to work with countries and provide both its hardware and its software when it comes to different connectivity projects.
When you speak of partners, is there a specific group that you have in mind? Are there countries in Asia that are natural partners, or that are worth targeting more than others when it comes to implementing the strategy? We do have already partnerships, right? And you mentioned a few. Some are developing. Could you further elaborate on this aspect?
Sure. I have mentioned Japan. I had the pleasure to negotiate the partnership with Japan, and the precondition for that was like-mindedness, of course. And we are working with our partners in Japan on developing not only it's not EU-Japan connectivity only, it's also working together in third countries. So in that partnership, we have identified regions where we want to work together. We have been engaged with ASEAN. For us, ASEAN is of huge importance, and there was a statement on the ministerial level at the beginning of December on sort of common understanding of the basics of connectivity. There are very many projects of European Union, be it institutions here in Brussels, but also very many member states that are active in ASEAN, especially when it comes to the green transition. Europe has probably one of the best know-hows. So there is already engagement on the ground for, I would say, for many years, but it was not called connectivity, it was called something else. For us, India is an incredibly important partner. You know that this year we hope there will be a summit with India during the Portuguese presidency. India is an extremely dynamic country. In a few years, it will be the most populated country in the world, very young, and therefore of huge importance for data economy. So we definitely want to work in India, and India wants to work with us. But I already said it's not only Asia. It is really the whole world in many aspects. So when it comes to Asia, we do not forget Central Asia. It's space of strategic importance, and not only East and West connections, but North and South that are equally important. And we are engaging also depending on the priorities of the countries, but I would say that in every discussion, again, the digital and the green are two essential parts.
Yeah. Now you mentioned those some countries, right? But you also mentioned ASEAN, a regional organization. What about the broader institutional architecture that is needed in order to flesh out and to roll out this policy initiative? Do you think that we need to develop additional capacity here, institutional capacity, or can we also instrumentalize and engage further with already existing institutions? I'm thinking of the Asia-Europe meeting here, obviously.
Sure.
Which has been so far, even though next year will be the 25th anniversary, largely neglected by the stream of international affairs, the big picture. Do we see structural changes here? I mean, what are the implications of this thinking in Brussels, which is quite big when you see that here we are actually dealing with the challenge of fine-tuning and resetting our relations with rising China.
I mean, your question is very valid. I don't think there is much appetite for new structures. I think there's a lot of appetite to using the structures that we have more efficiently or better. So what we are looking at here is really identifying within the already existing many structures and streams how to make them work in a more practical way. I mean, the biggest challenge of connectivity strategy in general is not the philosophy of it. The philosophy of it, I think, is quite clear, is to how to make it have practical projects on the ground. And this is where, again, I will repeat that our cooperation with private sector is of essence. We really will have to think about the whole sort of foreign policy, technology, economy nexus in a new way. We need to modernize our instruments. We need to move to the next generation of instruments, if you wish, because only from 2018 until now, since the strategy was adopted, the world has changed a lot, or I would say changed in a way that would require a new look at the strategy as well. So we can't be static in a world that is so dynamic. And in that sense, to be very honest, our main thinking here is how do we translate this into practical projects on the ground at a scale that we really make a difference in terms of the benefit for the countries that are receiving our assistance or that we work with. And here, what will be super important is the discussion on the financial side. This requires a lot of money. And there is no public money that can pay for the infrastructure needs in the world. So we have to see how to best combine different sort of financial instruments, especially in those countries where there are projects that are not outright bankable. Bankable projects would always find investors, but there are some infrastructure projects of crucial importance that at the moment are not bankable and need assistance through different type of blending facilities, so that you add a part of a grant or you add some guarantee facilities, so that the private investors have incentives and reasons to take the risk. So I think it's really a combination of things, but the most important is to look at the big picture, to understand the repercussions, to also understand that in the world today, what happens in Asia has an immediate effect on Europe and the other way around. You can't talk about the green transition in isolation. This is something that we need to tackle all together. And for me, what is interesting here is how this topic will have to revive multilateralism in a way, because in the situation that we are in, multilateralism is just a question of common sense. If we have or if we are sharing the same challenge, we will have to find a way of addressing it with the same or similar thing. You just think about the COVID crisis. Just think about the fact that a tiny virus is threatening everyone equally in a way, and that we have to have a joint approach to it if we want to travel again. If we want to be able to exchange again, we will have to tackle it together. It's the same with digital. It's the same with environment. So there are very many things that are just bigger than individual national interests.
Indeed. So we certainly all agree that connectivity is needed for a world economy to function. And you also pointed out to the security aspects here. And in our questions and answers, or let's say the question stream that I see here from the audience, there is one question by my colleague Professor Andreas O'Callaghan from Ireland. Hello, Bernadette, which I would like to pick up. And she asked, isn't connectivity leading to interdependence and thereby to a challenging and even dangerous environment? So in how far do we have to rethink and reconceptualize connectivity?
Connectivity is interdependence by definition. Connectivity you do with somebody else in a way that makes you dependent and make that other side dependent. The question is the weaponization of connectivity. Mm-hmm. And this is what brings very serious security challenges. Let me remind you of the energy crisis some 10, 15 years ago. We have seen this also quite interestingly during the first months of the COVID crisis. We understood also that value chains that you normally don't think about have major implications for our security. I was in Brussels, of course, when the pandemic started. For 3 months, I couldn't buy just simple medical alcohol, because the value chains were such that there was no medical alcohol produced here. And I think that there is going to be a whole new take on security and security challenges, be it digital security, be it economic security, be it security of value chains. And I think this logic of diversification and trying to have sort of stronger checks and stronger normative side for this will be very much needed. Security is not about armies anymore. So there's a massive discussion to happen. I see it coming. I see a lot of it being already discussed within sort of the NATO umbrella, the new challenges, the new security threats. But weaponization of interdependence is something that my professor from JFK, Joe Nye, has been talking about and writing about for a long time. And this is the new nature of this is brought by also the new nature of connectivity. You can do incredible things with digital connectivity in a good and in a bad way. So I think there will have to be a lot of pondering on how do we best keep each other safe. And this is something that is going to be, I think, a discussion of our generation, because it really changed everything. You know, the world was very different when I was studying, and it was all regionalized, and it was all about pre-positioned troops and different, I would now say from this point of view, simple sort of relations. This is becoming much more complicated. You also have non-governmental actors. You have complexities which we didn't have to face before.
Yes, complex interdependence and the even more complex level that we have reached here now. From Asia, from the Republic of Korea, my dear friend and colleague, Professor Sung-Hoon Park, is thinking about and referring to the Comprehensive Agreement on Investment, recently agreed on, politically agreed on by China and the European Union. What role could this initiative play in making China and the EU becoming more cooperative in their thinking when it comes to the international political economy?
It is an important question. You know that it's the sort of the nature of the European Union itself is to seek out cooperation. This is how we are created. This is how we have been created, and we understand the value, the importance, and the benefits of convergence. And this is an difficult and important discussion, because if you want to have that convergence, then you also at the same time you have to sort of protect your fundamental basic principles. I think that in terms of, I don't know enough about the agreement itself. The text has been published only a few days ago, and I have to be honest, I still didn't have time to go through it. There is a lot of discussion around it, but just in general, if we can come up with solutions and agreements that work well, not only for us, but also for the partners that we work with, I think this is simply a necessity. How this will play out and what is going to be the concrete outcome is something that is most important. And again, what I have seen in my life and career is that I have been a diplomat in cabinets, and I have been a diplomat on the ground. and on the ground is incredibly important. So it's really important, at least for what I do and what we are trying to develop here, is to create a process where the results on the ground will bring benefits and long-term sustainability. So I think this entire discussion in general and the new dynamics, we also, as I said, I was listening to the hearings of the incoming Biden administration. There will be a lot of interesting time ahead of us. And I think for everyone who loves foreign policy, it will be a lot to follow.
Yes, and there is this, and you mentioned it. There is this idea that the European Union needs to become a global actor, needs to develop more agency, strategic autonomy. We have two questions here. One from Duisburg University, Professor Werner Pascha. Werner, hello, and one from Fudan University. Professor Zhang Xiaotung, hello to Shanghai. Let me lump them together. That is, Werner Pascha is referring to the recent last week's resolution by the European Parliament on EU-Asia's connectivity, which asks for a global EU connectivity strategy that shall be still drafted and published, which is needed. Professor Zhang, he's pondering whether the connectivity strategy will facilitate the geopolitical role of the European Union. So, what are the needs here? How to close the gap between internal and external expectations vis-a-vis the European Union, and what has been achieved so far?
This is, for me personally, for me as an analyst, one of the issues that I focus on or think about quite often. I would say European Union is a global actor. I think it's a fact. And it's a fact through numbers. It's a fact through economy. It's a fact through the normative power of the European Union. So European Union is a global actor. What is a bit confusing is that still many people, when they talk about geopolitics and the world, are still sort of using the residue logic of the 20th century. When to be a global power, you had to be also a military power. That has changed, or somewhat changed. And I think the ingredients of power in 21st century are different. And here, European Union has all the capabilities. European Union is the second biggest economy in the world. European Union is investing the largest sums of money. European Union is a leading normative power. But it also, of course, requires a sort of the coherence that you want, the coherence of intention, if you wish. So it's for European Union, again, this sort of cooperative logic of doing international relations is the only logic that we want to promote, because again, on our own skin, we have learned that it does bring more security, it does bring more economic growth, and it does bring more social benefits. So in that sense, I think the geopolitics of 21st century will somewhat lose the geo part there's a very interesting analysis, a piece by two colleagues from SWP in Berlin about connectivity as the new geopolitics of 21st century, where it's not about geography anymore, but about other elements there. However, I think that what we need to do in European Union, us as citizens, if you wish, as well, is to understand better that we already have all these capabilities, and to understand also better how we best can use them. Connectivity definitely is a policy that is, by definition, capacitated to facilitate. It's a positive agenda. There is, I mean, everything about sort of connectivity and building and creating the new generation of infrastructure that will be sustainable and that will be long-term beneficial to communities is a positive agenda. And there is a lot that can be done and built on the basis of that agenda. So, I mean, I see it from all the discussions within European Union with member states. I'm yet to hear from anyone that they do not sort of see or support the connectivity in this way. So it really has a very important potential to sort of help promote different cooperative strands as primarily, again, positive agenda. It's an agenda for growth in every sense.
Yes, an agenda for growth, and that also needs the input by the private sector, as you have pointed out. And there are a couple of questions also by some students here. In relation to the role of the private sector and the role of Chinese capital in particular. That is one question by a PhD candidate of mine from China, Liu Qiao. But there is also a question by my dear colleague Professor Gottwald from Ruhr-Universität. They all of them are referring to the increasing interdependence and by extension the potential weaponization, as you have called it. So how to integrate the private enterprises from China, but also from the US, while at the same time protecting privacy and strategic autonomy. How can the EU and its member states successfully deal with this challenge, and how can connectivity contribute to this process? Mechanisms, norms, regimes, regulations. What is the architecture here that we have, that we need?
Rules and norms. I think you just basically answered your question. It is
follow up on it.
Yes, it is the normative power of things. I learned it also through the enlargement process, which I think for Europeans has a lot of lessons to offer. How you approximate a system. And one thing that I have learned there is that trust is essential. Trust on both sides. And this trust comes easiest through the adherence to rules and norms, or mutually agreed rules and norms. And I think this normative element is sometimes not taken for granted, but we think that this is something that is just the documents. It's absolutely determining the way we operate and cooperate. It's essential for sort of the freedom of exchange. And therefore, I think the serious and comprehensive take on agreeing mutual rules and norms is of fundamental importance for not only for all connectivity related exchanges, but exchanges in general. Trust is a very expensive commodity. And trust is something that is also very easy to lose. So I think investment in the normative side is for us of pivotal importance.
Well, time is already up.
Yes,
Ambassador, which is a pity, I have to say. However, I think we are now at a very crucial point here, and that is that we realize again how important it is to pursue the principle and the mechanism of multilateralism.
yes.
In foreign affairs on a regional, on a global level, and how challenging this can be. We experienced the hard way during the term of the last U.S. administration. There is a new one now, so the rules of the game they now can be maybe not re-established, but they can be discussed and they need to be agreed on. And there are new members in the club, which means that it's not the transatlantic, but it's the Eurasian, it's the Europe-Asian region that also plays into world affairs, and possibly it's the Asian region actually that shapes global affairs, the international political economy and the security affairs far more than people than we here in Europe sometimes are ready to realize. So connectivity is also is also dealing with these patterns of thinking, and I want to thank you that you made it very, very clear how important, from the perspective of a practitioner in Brussels, is to deal with connectivity as a concept that helps us to better understand and to better shape international affairs. We have an audience here that's spanning from Europe to Asia, and I hope that we'll all, one way or the other, we'll meet again soon. There will be more lectures here by the Jean Monnet chair, and I think it's very promising to know that we, as a not only as an epistemic community, but as a group of people who have an interest in being part of these shaping processes, that is students, scholars, professionals, that we want to share our insights and also our curiosity amongst ourselves. And digitalization is a fantastic tool that can help us in process, that can help us to proceed. Having said that, I hope that we will meet in person soon again.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. You have mention the word that is incredibly important, that's curiosity. I would also add modernization. And I'm really looking forward to engage, especially with your student population, because I think, and I see it through my child, these kids have different new skills. And I think it is really important to engage in a very profound discussion on the changes that we are all going through. It is a bit of a revolution, and we need to understand it properly, and we need to be able to manage it properly.
And so say we all, and so we shall do. Thank you.
Yes.
And have a good day, a good afternoon to Asia. Stay productive and keep connecting.
And take care.
And take care, indeed.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.